Okay, we are going to be covering lesson 2.7 today. It is not going to be as long as some of our others that we've gone over. So today what we're going to be focusing on is we're going to be focusing on finding your x and y intercepts based on graphs, and we're going to talk about finding your x and y intercepts algebraically, which is actually going to tie into what we did in lesson 1.1. Okay, so starting out, this first video is purely going to be finding x and y intercepts on graphs. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get going. So it says, what are x and y intercepts? Okay, so the definition for an x-intercept is the x-coordinate, so it's not the whole coordinate, just the x-coordinate of any point that crosses the, so where are my x-intercepts? Where they cross the x-axis. Okay. So an x-intercept is going to be any time that it crosses the x-axis. So down below here, we've got a picture of a graph, okay? And we are going to be looking at our x-axis, okay? Now I want you guys to remember your x-axis is going to be this axis here that runs horizontal. Your x-axis is the axis that runs horizontally, okay? So anywhere that this graph crosses the x-axis is going to be an x-intercept. So this graph here has three x-intercepts. There's an x-intercept right here. That's where it crosses the x-axis. There's an x-intercept right here. That's where it crosses the x-axis. And the third one is right there in the middle where it crosses again. So those are the three x-intercepts. Those are the three x-intercepts. So we could say that this graph has an x-intercept, okay, at -1, 1/2, and 2. Okay, so it has x-intercepts at -1, 1/2, and at 2. Now, when I ask you guys for these x-intercepts, though, I'm going to ask you guys to write your x-intercepts as points. Okay, so the point, and this might be some review for some of you guys, we've got the point -1. This point right here is where it crosses. So the x value of that is -1. What's the y value that is associated with -1? What would have a y value of 0? So -1, 0. This point right here, -1, 0, is an x-intercept. Okay? You could also say that your x-intercept is a point 1/2. What's the y value at 1/2? What's the y value right there? Will be 1/2. 0. Okay? And then my last one that I have, which is down here, okay, we said that x-intercept was 2. So the point where that x-intercept is would be 2. What's the y value? 0. So x-intercepts are -1, 0, 1/2, 0, and 2, 0. Okay? Y-intercept. A y-intercept is the y-coordinate of any point that crosses the y-axis or axis. Okay? Your y-axis is the vertical line. Your y-axis is the vertical line. So where does our graph cross the y-axis? It would cross that y-axis right there. So if I asked you guys to give me the y-intercept, if you ever see I and T, they're talking about intercept. If I asked you guys to give me the y-intercept, well, our y value would be 1, right? Our y value is 1. What is our x value for the y-intercept? Well, it would be 0. 0, 1, okay, would be our y-intercept. When I ask you guys, just repeating myself again, when I ask you guys for the x-intercept, I want it as a point. So -1, 0, 1/2, 0, 2, 0. If I ask you guys for the y-intercept, I want it as a point. So 0, 1. Okay? As you guys are looking at the screen, do you guys notice anything about your x-intercepts? Pause the video. See if you can jot something down that you notice about your x-intercepts. Okay? Hopefully you guys notice on your x-intercepts, there's a 0 in the spot on every single one of them. Okay? X-intercepts, something we could add with this x-intercept, their y value is 0. Okay? And that's true for every x-intercept, your y value is 0. Okay? Now that was easy to see in our x-intercepts because we had a lot of x-intercepts. We don't have a lot of y-intercepts, but we could also make a statement on our y-intercept and our x value is 0 for our y-intercept. That might be handy later on. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I've got two pictures of graphs up there, two pictures of graph. I want you guys to pause the video real quick, and I want you guys to identify, use points, identify what is your x-intercept, identify what is your y-intercept, okay? And along with that, I want you guys to write those answers as points. So pause the video. Okay, so you guys are supposed to identify where your x and y intercepts are, okay? First, remember, and you guys might need to write this down, that is my x-axis, that is my y-axis, okay? So my first one here, I have a line, okay? I have a line, my x-intercept, okay? And you can find this just by looking. Does it cross? Does it cross? Oh, it crosses there. Does it cross? Does it cross? No, it doesn't. So this has one x-intercept. That right there is our x-intercept, okay? And we could say that our x-intercept is at 2, okay? So the x value is 2. What's our y value for an x-intercept? Well, it's 0. That's what we found on the last slide too. Interesting. Y-intercepts. I'm looking down my y-axis for y. Oh, right there. There's my y-intercept. Okay. This y-intercept, well, it's -4. Okay. And -4 would be the y value of that point. So what would my x value be? 0. That also goes back to that last slide, okay? For an x-intercept, our y value is 0. For a y-intercept, our x value is 0. Interesting. Let's go over here to the next picture. Start out with our x-intercepts. Are there any points where it's crossing? Oh, right there and right there. There's 2 of them. So we've got a point here and a point here. Okay, if I was labeling these x-intercepts, I could label this one here as -1, 0. This one here would be 3, 0. Okay, and again, I think we might have found something. Y value is 0, y value is 0 for my x-intercepts. Okay, if I do my y-intercepts, I'm going to be rolling down my y. Oh, right there, right there. That point, that would be my y-intercept. So I could say that's at 3, and that's my y value is 3. What's my x value? Well, it's 0. Guys, I'm not kidding. I think we found something out here. It appears that every time we have found our y-intercept, our x value is always 0. And any time we have found our x-intercept, our y value is always 0. That seems like that's important. Okay? So that's the first part of this note series here is finding our x and y intercepts based on our graphs. So now the next video will be how do we find x and y intercepts algebraically.